1-800-956.
And tools to sales professionals and business leaders. He created this show with one thing in mind, for sales professionals to share their secrets with each other. Join us every Wednesday at 12 to 12:30 Eastern Time, or sign up for updates on Mike's mailing list at salessensesolutions.com. Mike appreciates you listening and wishes you good luck on your next sales call. Please enjoy the music while your party is reached.
Good afternoon, Chuck.
Mike, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy. Go ahead.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. I'm very excited to have Chuck Bauer here with us today on the Sales Sense Reality Talk Show with your host, Mike Krause. With more than 2 decades of winning experience in sales, noted national sales coach, speaker, author, and corporate sales effectiveness consultant, Chuck Bauer brings us the unique and distinctive business insight. His passionate commitment to excellence is illustrated in his consulting, coaching, and speaking work. With his no-nonsense approach and tell-it-like-it-is style, sales professionals gain immediate revenue results from his teaching. Each week, he personally oversees numerous sales processes in North Latin America and listening to live sales phone calls, sitting on live face-to-face appointment meetings, professional salespeople and their clients. He personally coaches many salespeople, sales executives, and business owners. His latest book of Sales Mastery becomes available now, and we're going to talk about that. So his new book is Sales Mastery, and I have Chuck Bauer on the line. Chuck, how are you this afternoon?
Mike, doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, awesome. Can't complain. I read your book, and I love it. It made me chuckle throughout the book because it's so realistic, because it's one of my distinctions, too, and it sounds like you're the same way, is that we still do sales. We still talk from the street. We don't do the ivory tower. I was in sales 10,000 years ago, pitch that we know a lot of people out there do. What was your motivation behind the book?
Well, it's really funny because I am so busy with client commitments. In fact, I'm sitting here at a major sales-related organization here in Dallas, and I've just spent 3 hours sitting with phone salespeople live, coaching them on their sales calls. And because of the breadth of my business, I really did not have time to write this book. And Wiley Publishing, a year and a half ago, basically recruited me for 6 months. I kept telling them, no, I'm too busy, too busy, too busy. And then the final straw came when I was Chase is one of my largest clients, and I was sitting in Tallahassee, Florida, with the vice president of Chase. And again, I work with them on the sales side of things. And I was telling him about Wiley's pursuit of me to write this book. And I said, I just don't have the time. And the VP of Chase says, we expect it of you. We expect it of you. We want to see it out there. You have so much good information to share with people. And I flew home to Dallas later that day, and I thought, man, he got me. One of my clients got me for a change. And so that's why we did the book.
He sold you. He sold you right there. And there is a huge piece of, credibility, and, it makes the client feel good. Plus, it's a portable Chuck Bauer, They have all your tools in one package, and if they need something, they can just use it as a reference tool. And I loved it. I thought the graphic illustrations throughout it was interactive, and I thought it was a lot of fun to read. So I'd like to tell, actually, before we jump into the book so much, tell the listeners a little bit more about your background.
Okay. Basically, I started in the car business many moons ago, about 25 years ago. And what was very unique about this is I had no sales experience whatsoever. I was at the same dealership for 5 years and actually broke a number of sales records for Nissan. That's the sales house that I was at, and stayed at the same dealership for 5 years. But what was unique was in the beginning days, I had this little efficiency thing about my brain. And again, with no sales experience, I was able to put together a sales structure where I was actually the first car salesperson in the United States to personally buy a PC computer to database my clients. And I went to a mail campaign back in the late 80s on this, where it basically over time grew into a referral-based only business. So the last 3 years that I was at Nissan, I never chased a client. They all chased me, and I created the sales environment to that's what happened. And it's very different when clients and prospects are chasing you versus you chasing them, obviously. So one thing led to another. I started training for Nissan on a local level, went to regional, got on with a couple companies where I toured the country doing sales training and personal development speaking, and 18 years ago opened up my own company doing this, and, the rest is history.
Wow. And it is a nice position when the clients are chasing you. That's a rare find, as we all know, in the sales background. I definitely can appreciate that. I wanted to jump in a little bit more about the three groups of salespeople, the 3%ers, the 27%ers, and the 70%ers, because that really resonated with me. There's always the 80-20 rule, but then you broke it down a little bit more and share with the listeners what you call the 3%ers.
Absolutely. The 3%ers obviously are the smallest bracket out of all the salespeople, but these are the guys and gals who just get it. They either have the natural ability to sell or somewhere in their past they learned it, and these are the people that would walk into a sales office and by the way, they probably wouldn't do this because they're all working and gainfully employed somewhere making money, but these are the people that say, you know what, don't insult me with a salary. Give me the highest level of commission, give me the structure, and get out of my way and let me go knock it out. These are our 3%ers out there, and I've been very fortunate to work with some. I've got some 3%ers that in telephone sales have made obnoxious amounts of money because they are such good salespeople. But it's very limited, and these people are driven by money. They're driven by building an impenetrable financial wall around their family and their security and insurance and all these kind of things, and they want money for bigger things. So that's the makeup of the 3%.
Absolutely. And I think you called them freak of nature, right?
Freaks of nature, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, they've earned that title.
They absolutely have, and I've worked with those people too, and they just grind it out. They don't want to be told. They just want to be left alone, and they just get it, and so much. Why do you think a lot of people go into sales, and they just think, I guess, before I speak, actually, why do you think people go into sales?
Well, it's there's all sorts of different reasons, but I will tell you what I see. And again, day-to-day operations, I'm sitting in on face-to-face presentations, phone calls, worked with a lot of companies through the years, but I will say this, is that most salespeople look at their sales positions as part-time opportunities. Most salespeople just want to go gain a salary, get a nice little benefits package, live very comfortable, and you know what? If that's what their thing is, then that's what their thing is. And that's very relevant in the sales industry all over the place. And those guys are okay, but again, the 3%ers bust out of that and really want some bigger things for themselves and their family.
Absolutely. They just want to keep climbing. You mention a lot in your book here, which resonated with me as well. Something that I try to help people train is control. controlling the process. And I want you to elaborate that a little bit more from your perspective. What does that mean for a salesperson to control the process?
Well, when you control the process, a top freak of nature salesperson or the 3%er is going to control the call from the onset. And so many salespeople, they miss this. Here's an example. When a salesperson makes a call on Monday, they give up control on the phone call by immediately doing one of the biggest sales violations that there is. And what do you think that is, Mike? So it's a Monday morning call, and they're beginning the call. What do you think the violation is?
They asked about their weekend.
You got it. Yeah, you nailed it. And so what happens, and they don't even know it, they think, oh, I'm trying to be nice, And again,
right.
Being nice or too accommodating in sales is not the way to go. And I'm not telling people to be mean, but you need to be professional. But the minute that you ask people about their weekend at the beginning of a call, you cross that line from controlling the call to now going from professional to personal. Now, ask them at the end of the call. And the other thing is, we know this, is that with the heavy barrage of phone calls on a daily basis, my salespeople have to be extremely distinctive over the competitors, because the way we look at it is before a sales call, 5 minutes before you call your client, they're going to be speaking to another salesperson, and 5 minutes after your call. So you have to take command and control of that call, because that sets the entire relationship up for the future. And the moment that you become too accommodating or too appeasing, you lose control. So here's an example. This happens all the time. You're either face-to-face with a client or you're on the phone with a client or prospect, and they say, would you send me a brochure? So, Mike, what do you think that 97% of all salespeople do when the prospect says, hey, send me a brochure? What do they say?
Oh, absolutely. I'll get it in the mail today.
That's right. Now, if you're trained by me, you would never, ever do that. And two reasons why is, number one, we already know that doesn't work. That's the kiss of death. That's the same guy that says, hey, can I get your business card from you? And, oh, yeah, okay, let me give you my card. It doesn't work. Stop doing that. It's been battle-tested.
You hit one of my go ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay, Mike, go ahead.
No, you hit one of my hot buttons, too, is like I've never made $1 off a brochure or a business card.
Oh, my gosh. It's crazy, and they think that they're doing the right thing. So everybody that's listening to this radio show right now, I want you to write this word down in big letters and put a circle around it and stamp it on your forehead, and you respond to, will you get me your brochure, with no. And you say it with conviction, and you say it with belief, and you say it with that you're not going to lose anything by saying no. Now that I have that in your heads, let me give you a little bit more exact scripting. And again, because what we're trying to do, so you understand the psychology behind this, is we want you to stop the brain from continuing on with that thought process of getting a brochure. We actually want to sever the spinal cord of that thought process and make it retreat back into their brain where it goes bye-bye. And the only way to sever the spinal cord is to say no. And you say it with conviction. Like, there's probably more guys than gals on listening to the show today, but it would be like a wife saying no to her husband. There's no hesitation. It's no. So here's some scripting for everybody, and then we'll go to the next question, Mike. But you would say it like this. With respect, Mike, the answer is no. I just don't send brochures out to anybody. And then I would immediately go into something that's called PSP, and we use that acronym for a reminder of pause, silence, and patience. We want to be quiet at this point to allow the receiver of our no to churn it in their brain. And typically, we would allow it to be silent for 5 to 7 seconds, and then we would follow with, and here's why. So it would be something like this. Can I have a brochure? With respect, the answer is no. Pause, silence, patience. Then we would say, if nothing is said, then we would say, and here's why. We just don't send brochures out to anybody. But if you would kindly share with me your gross annual sales, how much you spend a month. They get into that line of questioning, but here's the key thing, is we've now taken control back of the call. Nice and simple.
Absolutely. And I spun it once with a call center. I said, tell them you're a Go Green company. You know, you're not going to print any more brochures. You're not going to mail any more out. And you know what? They happen immediately, as you wouldn't guess, Chuck. It immediately turned their results around. They're like, now they look environmental, and they were saving on time, and they were controlling the sales process. So yeah, it's so important. And you're the king of acronyms because you got this whole index in the back, which I love. But and we all speak acronym. My grandma always says that the new language is acronyms, so I love that. But on page 120, diving right into that PSP, you got the dog there with the ears and the listening. And I hope that you've solved this, Adam, or split the atom here, is because how do you teach listening? How do you teach it? You know, how do you teach it to a salesperson?
Well, it's kind of funny that that's come up, but let me tell you about a seminar I did last week. My sales staff had a weak moment, and they booked me for a Kiwanis Club. And I'm not saying anything against Kiwanis, but I'm so busy, I just don't have time to do non-sales related events, that kind of thing. And so they booked me, and and then it got worse. It was a 7 a.m. speech. So anyway, I get there at 6:30, and I'm watching these Kiwanis guys walking in. Again, there's no salespeople here. You know, this is a public service community event. I'm okay with that. And please note this: 1% of all my gross revenues go to ASCPA every month. I love dogs and cats. So I'm sitting here going, okay, what am I going to talk to this audience about? And they're a little bit older, so I'm going, okay, do we talk about oatmeal? Do we talk about long-term care? I don't know what it is. And 30 seconds before they introduce me, I still have no clue what I'm going to talk about. And I thought, you know what? We're just going to talk about what these people dislike about salespeople. And I'll tell you what, it was one of the best speeches and discussions that I've ever done with an audience. I wish I would have had it taped because all salespeople would have really learned from the dislikes from these people. And overall, the number one thing that came out was the lack of professional communication by salespeople. So let's just get into a procedure here, okay? First of all, admit that you're not a good listener. And if we get really deep into it, which we don't have the time today, there are 5 stages of listening. I'm just going to give you the first 3, and then I'm going to give you 3 of them, and then I'm going to give you a way to really learn this that you can learn in less than 5 minutes. So here you go. The stages of listening are, first one is you don't hear anything. So the client or prospect is speaking to you, you don't hear a word, and there are 2 reasons why you don't hear it. What do you think they are, Mike?
You don't hear a word?
You don't hear a word, but here's why, is that too much internal chatter in your head. You're too worried about the fact that you haven't paid a bill or something's going on with your finances or your relationships or whatever it is. You're not focused enough to keep separation there in your brain, so you got too much internal chatter. The other thing that happens is you guys leave your sales phones on. Turn your phone ringers off. Holy cow. You're codependent with your phones. And you're engaged in a conversation with somebody, and I can't tell you how many times I've called a salesperson, and you can hear that they're in a meeting or they're at lunch, and they completely disconnect. So stop the internal chatter. The next thing is that you hear portions of what people say, and then what you do is you get real selective hearing. So you miss a lot of it, and then you start acknowledging, when you really don't hear. And then the third one is, and I leave the third one in the highest level, is with put everything behind you. I'm a weightlifter, and I get in the gym 3 or 4 times a week, and when I get on that gym floor, I walk in on the floor, the first thing I tell myself is put everything behind me, and for this next hour, we're just going to work on weights. We're not going to worry about that client or this or that. So same thing on your sales calls. Put everything behind you and hear everything that is being said. Now, with that being said, here's a test question for all of you to ponder for a moment. You're sitting there with the prospect, and the prospect says approximately 100 words to you. Salespeople at some point in that 100 words will completely shut off the prospect. The number of words, and again, just Monday in Phoenix, some people said, we shut them off at 50 words, and somebody else said 75. Here's the number, ladies and gentlemen, listening to this call today. The number is 7. This prospect says 7 words, and because your preconceived notions about everything and your ability to know everything it is about your product and all that, at the 7th word, you stop listening. By the 10th word, you have formulated an answer, And from the 11th word to the 100th word, you either completely ignore that 90 words or you interrupt and talk over them. And that's the disconnection of the intimate human spirit that kills salespeople. So you either stop listening or you talk over them. And when you talk over them, that is so rude. I've been on calls, Mike, where I can hear the client or prospect choking. Mm-hmm. Now, just so the audience knows, they weren't choking on a chicken bone. It sounded like they were choking because they're trying to get a word in edgewise while the salesperson is turning blue from talking so much. Ladies and gentlemen listening today on this phone call, a period at the end of a sentence means stop. Take a breath. Or my most elegant presenters are ones that when they make a statement, they stop and ponder for a moment. Or if they hear a statement or a question by a prospect, they stop and ponder for a matter of moments before they respond. Some of the best I've ever seen do this. But we formulate that stuff, and it's a really disconnection. And worse, you become like all the other salespeople out there. So start listening at the highest levels and stop interrupting.
It's so basic, but so many people do not do that. And I was stunned to read that the 7 words were there. It's just unbelievable. We're so ADD, and Twitter and all the social media is not helping the cause, that's for sure. And it's really amazing when you go on a sales call. And I was on a sales call a few weeks ago. I said, listen, just don't show the brochure. Just go in there and listen, actively, engage, take notes, basic stuff that we all take for granted. And sure enough, he led with the brochure, and I had to do triage there. And I just don't understand if a salesperson focuses their energy on the prospect, more than likely you will get the sale. The minute, just like the Kiwanis Club said, the professional communication and they feel like they're not being listened and the salesperson is in it for themselves, it's just a bad rap for the rest of us. It really, really, truly is. And I'm a big believer in listening. And what you said in the beginning, I just tell people to have their mind go still. Sit in the car for a minute, focus on nothing, just like what you do, Chuck, at the gym. Go in there and just focus on the sales call. And I can't stand that, going back to your point with the cell phone thing. I constantly have to remind people to turn their phone off. Everyone has a cell phone. It's not cool anymore. It's a tool. Put it away, and you'll be happier. Because the minute it goes off, you've derailed that whole conversation, and it's just not good for anyone. It's just not good.
Yeah.
What other? Go ahead, Chuck.
No, go ahead, Michael.
No. I love the phone mastery in this part because that is that's the hardest part. What I think, wouldn't you agree, is getting the appointment, grinding the cold calls out or the calling, and you do an excellent job in the phone mastery section of your book. Could you tell them a little bit more about, how to, some tips and tricks maybe on the phone?
Yeah, a couple things is I work with client companies on ongoing contracts here. My biggest client here in Dallas is 180 salespeople in cubicles. They run over 8,000 calls a day. In some cases, a lot more than that, but that's just typical. And I sit in on a lot of calls. In fact, that's what I've done here this morning. But here's a couple things. First off is that your voicemail messages that your guys and gals are using out there don't work. You're too long. You're too laborious. There's no benefit into leaving a message of trying to pitch people, and you got to stop pitching on voice messages. It's really that simple. So all you got to do is give them a name and give them a benefit as to why that they should talk to you, and that you've also got to put in every voicemail message, you've got to put urgency, that you're really busy and that you're not going to waste their most precious resource, which is time. So most of these phone messages that salespeople leave, keep it less than 15 seconds, repeat the number twice, keep it short and sweet, and be over it. Now, outside of phone messages, let's go about contacting prospects. If it is a VIP, and Mike, you'll see this in the book, but you have to have different procedures for more valuable clients than less valuable clients. So this is real simple, gang, is that if you're calling a prospect cold, you need to dial that person when he least expects the phone to ring. And what a lot of you do is you block out phone time. I'm going to start at 9 in the morning. You lose. you have to figure out why nobody's going to take your call or they won't talk to you, because the defensive mechanisms come up after 9 o'clock. So the more bigger or the larger the client or the more valuable the client is to me, I'm going to make that call between 7 and 7:15 in the morning. And I have huge success with that. Or I would do it late in the afternoon, typically after 4 to 6, are prime times for me or my staff to call our prospects, because we know we can get in on those times. Now, the next thing is on the phone call is when you call, you have to remember this, salespeople. 5 minutes before your call and 5 minutes after, your client or prospect is going to be talking to another salesperson. So you know what? You better have your stuff together. So when I open up a call, and what I teach is you better take control of the call. You have to have urgency in your voice. You've got to have command in your voice, sound like you know what it is that you're doing to get their attention. And the three things that we want to kill in the opening of a call are three fears that the prospect has, and that are as follows. Number one is that you're selling something. Number two is that you're going to waste their time. And number three is that you're going to be just like all the other salespeople that they deal with on an ongoing basis. And if you can't break out of that distinction, then go quit your sales position and go to customer service somewhere. It's just that simple. So the way I open up most of my calls is, I know you're busy. I am too. I've only got a couple seconds. In fact, I got to go get a manicure, a pedicure. I got to go to the gym and got to go have lunch. I've only got a couple seconds. In fact, there's 15 people walking in my office right now. I am absolutely limited with time. Now, of course, that's an extreme exaggeration, but that's the kind of theme and spirit that you have to have on the call. So it immediately kills their fear that you're going to waste their time, and now, when they understand that, they open up to you. But if you do it any other way, you're going to lose.
Absolutely. Have an agenda, have a plan, and also goes back to our original point there, have control of the call. Have an agenda. Put an agenda out in front of someone. Have a separate folder that you did some research on a company. Don't go in there and just wing it, because they've seen 900 other wingers in there, and they're just comparing you to all the rest. And, Chuck, I love that, call before 9. I was always a big believer in that. Call before 9 and after 5, and make 5 calls a day, not 500. And it makes a huge, huge difference, especially if you're calling up into the C-level suite. So, Chuck, we got to close down here. Tell the listeners a little bit more about what you offer, where they can purchase the book, and I know you got some great tools, and share with them a little bit more about your contact information, et cetera.
Perfect, Mike. Thank you. Real simple, chuckbauer.com. Bauer spelled just like Jack Bauer from 24, so chuckbauer.com, and cbsalestools.com. There's a ton of free stuff, free videos, free articles there that you guys can have at. The Sales Mastery book is available through all chains: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Borders, Books A Million. Get it online, get it on all the electronic media. It's there available for you, and what a resource it is. Sales seminars do a lot of that. I do a lot of executive coaching, and when I do my one-on-one coaching with people, we have a very structured 6-month program, 18 sessions, all videotaped in a complete library that's only accessible to you and myself. And my other big program is called Sales Tune-Ups. Every Sunday afternoon, I fly out of Dallas to somewhere, Canada, United States, or Latin America, and work with a salesperson on Sunday evening, and then go on live sales calls on Monday, typically doing anywhere from 4 to 6 calls, and then they get a written debrief after that session. In fact, right now I am completely booked up through September on that, and we've now opened up Fridays to be able to do that as well. So get all the stuff on my website. Back to you, Mike.
Oh, thank you, Chuck. And I loved reading the book. I read it. I encourage everyone to go out and buy it, Sales Mastery by Chuck Bauer. And, just to highlight some things in closing, I think Chuck and I definitely agree on a lot of things here. Number one, have control of the call. Number two, listen to your prospect. And number three, timing. If you practice just those 3 things later today, you're going to be more successful in sales. And I really appreciate everyone listening. And thank you, Chuck, for taking time out of your busy day with my listeners. And I wish everyone good luck on their next sales call, and tune in next week. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye for now.
Thanks, Chuck. Bye now.